Hi everyone, it's the Billiards Doctor here. So today I want to talk to you guys about the different grips that are used in the game of pool. Based on where the cue ball is, if you're near a rail, if you have to bridge over a ball, all these different things. There's many different grips that are used in the game, and these are super helpful. It took me a long time to figure out like what grips worked best, and I figured out from watching a lot of pool on YouTube and from just getting used to what I practice. So I'll go through the different grips. I'll go through the different variations, even variations that I don't use but other professionals will sometimes use. So you guys can have a bunch of them to try out and see for yourself which ones you like, which ones fit you best. So I'm gonna just kind of move the camera. See how this works out. Okay, so the first bridge that I want to talk about is just the standard bridge that is used in pool. And this is just for regular shots, like nothing fancy. You're just, your hands on the table, you're trying to make a ball in the corner. So what you want to do, the basic thing you want to do, so this is like very beginner here. So you want to have your hand, let's say you start with flat on the table like this, and then you take the second joint of your index finger here and you lift it up. Keep your fingers all straight at this point. Lift it up. I want you to take your thumb and I want you to touch it to the index finger. So you see here, when you do that, you make this V, and this V is very, very smooth and allows your cue to go very smoothly through the V. If you are right-handed, it's the same thing. Take here, bring the joint up, keep the fingers straight, take your thumb, touch it here, and then you want to put the cue right there like that. This is much better than a lot of amateurs that don't know how to play will have their thumb out like this, and they'll just kind of put their thumb here. And that's not as good because now you're kind of on the fleshy part of your hand and it's kind of sticky. It's not solid all the way through. It's not stable, so it'll kind of shift back and forth. This is very all over the place, whereas if you make this V, it's very, very stable. So that's like the basic thing. It's important when you do this that you keep your index finger very straight and you have a lot of pressure applied to the table during this because you want your hand to be very, very stable. And if your index finger is kind of like wobbly, all of a sudden like it kind of changes, you know, your height and all this stuff. You want to be very stable. So keep your index finger very stable. There are a lot of variations on this hold. Each kind of professional does their own thing. Some of them switch off sometimes. Some of them just have a signature. For me, what I like to do, this is just this feels comfortable for me, is I like to have my index finger straight, my thumb up like you're supposed to, and then I'll take the middle and ring finger and I'll bring them like this, kind of upward like that. And this just feels really comfortable for me. It's very stable. It just feels more comfortable. I think it looks kind of cool too. So when I'm shooting, I'm always like that. And it's very, very stable for me, and I do that all the time. A couple professionals like Justin Bergman and I'm trying to think of other ones that do this. You may be the only one I can think of top of my head. They like to have both the middle and the ring finger underneath, like this. Even like this sometimes too. This or like this. And me personally, I don't like it under all the way because it elevates the whole hand a lot and it prevents you from getting lower. Like if you want to do a draw shot, it's harder. Now you're going downward. But some professionals like to go like this. That's pretty cool too. Some of them will go like that, or they'll have like this, or they'll have different variations. Like I know Niels Fyan likes to go like, I think it's like this, or it's like that, or it's something pretty cool. That I don't remember, but there's different ways to do it. I recommend just doing the forefinger plant your palm, just be like that, and over time you may adjust your hand, your middle and index a little bit to be more comfortable. But basically, that's what you want, is that stability. So that's just a regular on the table shot. That's called an open bridge. And what that means is that the cue is open. It's very free, so this part's open on the top. A lot of professionals will do closed bridge, which is like this, and this allows you to have very, very stable cue in terms of the cue going up and down at this point, obviously locked in position there. And there are different ways to do this hold also. So the best way I learned to do it is to like make this symbol with your hand. So this symbol here, and then you want to touch where the thumb and the index finger meet. You want to touch that to the middle finger. So it looks like that. So we're taking this thing here and we're touching it to the middle finger. That's all we're doing. So take this, touch the middle finger. And you want to put the cue through that hole, like that. Okay? That's all it is, just like that. And for me, when I do this shot, I tend to like to have my fingers like kind of like a loop, like a circular loop. A lot of professionals will do what's called the V grip, which is they'll take their index finger and instead of being like rounded, they'll make it like this. And I've seen for me that gives it gives you less friction, but also gives you like less support. So I feel like the cue is a little more loose. When I have it like this, I feel that I can really control the cue more, whereas this, it's a little bit less friction and I feel like I don't have as much feel to the ball. But I like to do this shot personally for break shots. I'll have my hand like this because it'll allow me to have as little friction as possible. But if I just have a regular shot and I do a closed bridge, I'll usually have it looped over like that. One other thing that's important to keep in mind is a lot of players that are amateurs and don't really know how to shoot well, when they make their bridge and they put the cue through it, they will have it like this. So as you can see, it's like, whoops. Let's fix that, sorry about that. How is that? Okay, hope that stays up. What they'll do is they will have the cue kind of going through like this. As you can see, oops, like that, when it's like that, you have very little contact with your hand, and worse yet, you have very little contact with this part of your hand here. And you actually want a lot of contact there. Like that's like the biggest advantage of having a closed bridge is that you have multiple points of your hand are touching the cue. So it's very, very stable going through. So like what is a good hold would be to take it like this and then move it this way, this. Now this allows you to have many points of contact, including you have index finger, you have here, and you have this part of your thumb, which is very, very stable. So if you do this shot, make sure your hand is like this and you're feeling a lot of contact on multiple points. That allows you to keep it very stable. That's very important. If you do the closed bridge, it really needs to be like that. So closed bridge, automatically do it for break shots. Like that's a must. Unless you're like Chinese 8-ball player or like snooker player or something. But besides that, you should really have a closed bridge. One other good use of the closed bridge that I use, it's one of my favorite bridges in this situation, is where like your hand is on the rail and it's not fully on the rail, but you can't get it. It's uncomfortable to get it flat here because your hand has to go up. It just hurts your wrist. So what I like to do is I like to do the closed bridge, and what I'll do is I'll take the ring finger and I'll put it underneath like this. And what I do is I take my middle finger and my pinky finger are the 2 points, and then my wrist is the third point. Well, and then there's also the ring finger is also holding up here, so you can see it's like this. It's like a tripod with the fingers plus the arm is stable on the rail, and that allows me to have really good stability, and it allows me for the perfect height of the ball. So if it's like this, like that's much easier than like having an awkward wrist or a floating wrist, floating hand type of a thing. So I love that shot. I got that from watching Shane Van Boning play. He uses that bridge quite a bit, and I tried it out and I love it. And so that's an awesome bridge. So another bridge that you can do for bridging over balls. So this is like if I need a bridge over a ball, I need a bridge over the 8 to make the 3 ball. What I like to do, and I highly recommend doing this is a great bridge, is you take your index and pinky finger and you put them out like this, kind of like the bowl or the I love you peace sign, sign language sign, and you take the middle and ring finger and you put it underneath, so it's like this. And then what you do is you lift up on the back two like this, and then you use the middle and ring finger as supports underneath. Do you guys see that? So you're putting, and a lot of amateurs will have like it like floating like that. You don't want that. You want to put lots of pressure on these back two fingers, so it's like a tripod, right? So that's important. So if I'm bridging over, I'll be like this. Okay, so that's a really helpful bridge when you're bridging over something, or also if you have like a long reach. So if you're reaching at the other end of the table, sometimes if your cue is like, if your hand is like this, then when you're reaching, it's very awkward for your back arm. Like sometimes I'm worried that my back hand is going to hit the table because it's so flat. So I want to elevate my cue a little bit, and if I elevate my cue, it helps to have a higher bridge like that. So that comes in handy too, even if you're not bridging over a ball. You have to bridge a very long length of the table. So that's closed bridge, and we did earlier, and then what we just did there is like bridging over a ball. The other ones that are super important, and I can't stress how important these are the bridges on the rails. So let's say it's like this, and the cue ball is this distance away from the 3. In fact, we'll even put the cue ball closer. It's closer. So actually, we'll start even more basic. And the cue ball is here. So it's decent far amount. It's too short for me to put my hand on the table because it's too close. So I want to use the rail. And it's really important that you use these types of holds on the rail, especially this hold. This is like, I don't know of any other way to do this hold. All the pros do it the same way. You take your thumb and you lay it flush against the cue like this. So it's flush against the cue, it's flat against the cue. You take your middle finger and you touch it to the top of the point here, and you take your index finger and it comes around like this. So you see that? So it's this finger down, this finger over, the cue goes in between, and the index finger goes on top like that. Okay, and that is a super stable hold. It might take a while to get used to at first, but it's really nice. I really like it a lot. I use it a lot for any time on the bridge, on the rail like that. Another hold that I do, so for me, I have kind of like 3 different types of holds I'll do on the rail, depending on if the cue ball is really close, a little bit away, or medium away like that. Those are 3 different holds for me. And I've seen that it's really important that for me that I do these different holds. So if the cue ball is like here, so like maybe less than a diamond away, like half a diamond away, then I'll do the full closed. If it's a little bit closer than that, then I actually do an open kind of a bridge. So what I'll do is I'll take my hand, I'll lie it flat, and I'll touch my fingers here, and I'll kind of just bring my thumb to the other side. So it's literally like fingers are flat and the thumb is just kind of resting on the left a little bit above, and the way it is it flows really nicely, and your wrist is kind of underneath the level of the table a little bit, and it flows really nicely. And it's very stable. So I like that a lot. I do that if it's a little bit closer to the rail. And if you're fully on the rail, then that's where you want to have some type of a like over the rail bridge where all of a sudden you're going over the side of the rail. So for example, like this is what I do. And I found that a lot of people will go like this, which is fine. And what I've seen is when you do this, the joint right here by the thumb, I can't even really point to it, my index finger, it sinks down a lot. You can see it kind of sinks like that. So it's hard to get that V shape. When you drop the middle finger down, see the joint came up, down, up, there it is. See, it comes up, up. So when you drop the middle finger down, the joint on your index finger comes out, allows you to give a really, really solid V. And this hold is important that you're putting pressure on the ring finger and index finger. Like, you should feel a little bit of pain. Like, you should put some weight down on it. That's good. That means you're really stable there. So I'll go like this, and I'll put the cue right in between there, and it'll be amazing. So I highly recommend that hold. If you can't do that, a lot of professionals will go like this off the edge too, which is fine. But the key to all these holds is that you want to have the most stability as possible. So you want to be able to keep the cue as stable as possible, and also, just as important, as level as possible. That's the biggest thing. You want to keep the cue as level to the table as possible. You never want to be like on the rail and like bridging downward. That's not good. If you don't have to do that, don't do it. Keep it flatter. Have this hold. Go to this hold. Have different holds on the rail that allow you to keep the level as parallel and as flat to the table as possible. So you're not bridging downward. When you bridge downward, you start to get you get swerve on the ball, which is going to mess up your aiming and stuff like that. So I highly recommend that. Trying to think if there's any other bridges. Those are all the bridges that I could think of at the moment. Obviously, like, there may be other ones. I'm trying to think. Well, another good one that's a closed bridge that I like to do a lot is when you're on the rail like this and you need to make a ball, I really like to do the closed bridge I talked about earlier, kind of the Shane Van Boning. Middle and pinky finger are the stable parts. And I'll put my forearm on the rail, and my fingers will be like this. And for this bridge, it's really important that you put a lot of pressure on the middle finger and on the pinky finger so that you're very, very stable. And those are bridges. So thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more videos by the Billiards Doctor.